From talking crap about your own colleagues to calling fights way too early, these are the worst commentator moments in UFC history. Number 6. Dominick Cruz vs. Daniel Cormier. This one was pretty funny. For some strange reason, Cruz thought that criticizing your colleagues in public was okay. Dominick told the media that DC didn't prepare his information before the fights. DC could have lost it and created a scene, but instead, Cormier was actually pretty mature and decided to confront Dominick in a face-to-face interview where the pair eventually reconciled. The best part was when Michael Bisping joined and started making fun of DC. There's nothing like watching three world champions having a good time. Talking about having a good time, you're gonna love this one. Number 5. Rogan's Hype Trains. Everybody loves Joe Rogan, but one of his greatest strengths is also a huge weakness. I'm of course talking about his podcast. Every week, Joe puts out dozens of hours of himself speaking, and millions of people listen to him. This is great because of all the interesting conversations, especially if you're an MMA fan. The downside is, anyone can say stupid stuff when they talk for long enough, and Rogan is no exception. Some of the best examples are his ridiculous hype trains. My favorite is definitely his crazy opinions on Ronda Rousey. He said calling her fights was an honor. He repeatedly said that she was making history, and even said that she would defeat 50% of the male bantamweight division. In Joe's words, "We always like to use that term once in a lifetime. Once in a lifetime does not apply to Ronda Rousey. It's once ever. In human history. There's never been a woman like her. When Ronda Rousey leaves this sport, you may never see someone like her again." Yeah, that didn't age well. Rogan's other amazing hype train came when Lyoto Machida became the light heavyweight champion. He officially declared the beginning of the Machida era. Sadly for Joe, the Machida era only lasted one fight, and Shogun Rua took the belt the second time they met. But Rogan isn't only famous for his hype trains. Number 4. Rogan on Cyborg. Again, the podcast is what makes this a bit problematic. Unlike Rousey and Machida, Chris Cyborg wasn't one of his favorite UFC fighters. In episode number 723 of his podcast, Rogan even joked about her having male genitalia. I get it. Joe is a comedian, and there shouldn't be limits to his comedy. But Rogan is also a really important voice in the MMA community, so respecting all the fighters should be one of his priorities. He has tried to apologize, but the truth is, he has never been very convincing in public and has shown a clear bias against her. Rogan often has a comedic take on doping scandals, but for Cyborg, his condemnation was very clear, and he again referred to her looks. We love Joe, but he definitely should have been a bit more tactful with that topic, especially when Cyborg revealed that her kids had been bullied because of the comments. But hey, believe it or not, Joe is often the voice of reason among commentators. Number 3. Mike Goldberg on languages. Along with Rogan, we could say that Mike Goldberg is historically the most significant voice in UFC commentary. However, he wasn't always on point, and he had some pretty hilarious comparisons. Like the time he said Travis Lutter was the Michael Jordan of grappling. He also stated that Anderson Silva's precision was precise. But his worst moment was the time he got his languages mixed up. During a 2007 fight between Kuniyoshi Hironaka and Forrest Petz, Goldberg had a classic moment. As you might have guessed, Hironaka is Japanese. But for some reason, when his corner started shouting advice at the fighter, Goldberg declared, "That's Portuguesa," which made absolutely no sense. In typical fashion, Rogan quickly corrected him while trying not to crack up laughing. Joe even brought up the embarrassing fact that Goldberg's wife is, in fact, Japanese. Poor guy. I mean, that was definitely dumb, but his intentions were good. However, apparently out of nowhere, in 2016, Goldberg was fired from the UFC. There was a lot of criticism toward the company because, although Mike was kind of sloppy, he was a very fun commentator. Do you think they made the right call? In any case, we'll always remember his crazy slips. Talking about moments that fans will never forget, number 2. Jon Anik on custody rights. Anik is a fan favorite. He's cool-headed, doesn't make too many bold claims, and he's always respectful. Well, maybe not always. Anik doesn't usually mess up, but on one occasion, he really pushed it too far. Andre Ewell faced Chris Gutierrez at UFC 258, and instead of talking about fighting styles, Anik decided to go deep. This is what Anik said. Both of these fighters have dealt with custody battles involving their children. Andre Ewell's son Eli is 7, and as of this broadcast, Andre does not have the rights to see him. He doesn't even know where his son is. He also added that Gutierrez was in a similar situation. Of course, Anik is a professional. He apologized and admitted he hadn't expressed himself the right way. Amazingly, Ewell actually came out and thanked him on Twitter. This is what Andre said. "Shout out to John for bringing light to my situation. I want everyone to know I'm fighting for my son, and that fight is my biggest fight ever. So thank you, John Anik. I know where your heart is at." And hey, at least we can all agree that was sloppy, but I'm sure the intention was good. For our final item on the list, I'm afraid pretty much all the commentators are guilty. Number 1. Calling it too soon. Man, this one happens way too often. But let's be honest, a lot of times even fans are fooled. UFC fighters are tough guys, and some possess zombie-like abilities to bounce back from the dead. But still, commentators jump to conclusions all the time, often killing off fighters who are still very much in the game. One of these moments was definitely the epic comeback by Frank Mir over Minotauro Nogueira. Big Nog was raining shots on Frank, who was definitely trying to defend himself from the bottom. Rogan stated that, "Frank is out, Mike." In fact, Frank wasn't out. He quickly rolled over, and just a few seconds later, Mir broke Nogueira's arm with a Kimura. Another epic case of giving up early came with a legendary comeback by Czech Congo. Pat Barry hit Congo hard, and the commentators wrote him off. They said it was all over, but Congo managed to get back to his feet until Barry caught him again, and once more Rogan said that Congo was out. Once again, he was wrong. Congo sprang to his feet and knocked Barry out with a massive punch. But of course, one of the most classic commentary fails came in the second fight between Leon Edwards and Kamaru Usman. Edwards was badly losing the fight in the 4th round. Din Thomas said that Edwards was just hoping to survive without getting knocked out. Rogan and Cormier both eventually agreed that Edwards was just hanging on. Anik, on the other hand, disagreed with his colleagues and had one of the greatest wins ever as a UFC commentator. Anik said this, "But that is not the cloth from which he is cut." Just when he finished saying that, Edwards kicked Usman into another dimension, proving all the commentators, except for Anik, completely wrong. Hey, never sell the bearskin before you catch the bear. That's all for now, fight fans. From talking crap about your own colleagues to calling fights way too early, these were the worst commentator moments in UFC history.